Hey there, it's Joe from Oops All Games here. The Mario Kart series is one of Nintendo's most loved series by fans, which is really weird considering I haven't thought about the series in a while. I spend at least 3 hours a day thinking about Nintendo games, but this one has never come up. So as we approach the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2 and the newest entry in the series, Mario Kart World, why not take a look back at where the series got its start, how it's evolved in its 33-year history, and why it's not something I think about too often. So, without further ado, 3, 2, 1, let's go! Where else to start but at the beginning? Super Mario Kart, released for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System on September 1st, 1992, is where this all began. It's a little interesting to see Nintendo try and make a new racing game since their other racing series, F-Zero, got its start the year prior, but let's hear this out. Looking at how things were back then, F-Zero didn't quite appeal to everyone, as there was no type of multiplayer in the game and it was a little too fast for people who just wanted to enjoy a racing game. Having a mascot-themed go-kart racing game made all the sense in the world, so Nintendo opted to go with the one plumber they knew they could count on. After all was said and done, the public was graced with Super Mario Kart. The game gave us 8 characters to choose from, being series staples like Mario, Luigi, Peach, Donkey Kong Jr., Koopa Troop. Wait, what? Yes, the one and only time Donkey Kong Jr. can be seen on the track. A very odd choice in place of standard Donkey Kong, but it's goofy enough to be kinda funny looking back on it. We get 4 cups to play, each of which contains 5 tracks at 5 laps for each. With these 20 tracks, you can drive, collect coins, grab items, and use them all to your advantage in order to get first place. With the items, you can either get a little speed boost or place a hazard down for others to run into, slowing them down. Computer racers, on the other hand, have character-specific items they throw down at absolutely random points. It's not even something you get as a player, you'll just see something you haven't seen before and end up getting hurt because of it. They seemingly don't need to hit item boxes to use them, so Toad can throw mini mushroom after mini mushroom and all you get to do is avoid it. If you manage to do that and cross the finish line in a good spot, you'll be able to move on to the next one. You really want to try for the top 4, as the game basically stops you where you are if you don't place somewhere on that podium. It does make things feel just a bit slower, especially if you're someone who is new to the game and doesn't have things nailed down just yet. It doesn't help that if you do manage to gain any kind of ground against the crowd, the computers immediately rubber band back to be right on your tail and will inevitably pass you. But if you'd rather play with a friend instead of computers, pop in a second controller on the SNES and get to driving. This is what Mario Kart does at its finest. And yeah, trying it out now is solid for their first attempt. With the addition of battle mode, putting players against each other for little competitions, the multiplayer gameplay expands even more to be something truly unique at the time. One downside about multiplayer being so integral to the experience, however, is when you're playing single player games, the screen is always split. For multiplayer, this makes complete sense, both players gotta see what they're doing. But for single player, all that's on the bottom screen is a map of everything going on. It's a little odd to have a bunch of space with not much there. I think I would have preferred a full view for single player instead of this. Controlling the game feels fine. I'm sure it felt way better back in the 90s, but going back after seeing what the series has become, yeah, this game has definitely aged. Attempting to drift does more harm than good. Sometimes you have no clue what's going on in these stages, and I still don't know why Donkey Kong Jr. is here. But for a first attempt at a racing game like this, Super Mario Kart did its job, and is still pretty fun today. As entertaining as Super Mario Kart was at the time, some much needed upgrades needed to be made. So in 1996, when Nintendo's next generation console, the Nintendo 64, was making its big entrance, a new Mario Kart followed suit just a few months later. Mario Kart 64, the one people just adore. This one introduces Wario and Donkey Kong into the mix, axing Koopa Troopa and Donkey Kong Jr. Cutting characters is never good for everyone, but this made sense. The total number of cups in the Grand Prix got bumped up to 4, but in tandem, the amount of tracks in each cup got moved down from 5 to 4, each track having 3 laps instead of 5. It's clear now that this was the right move, as most Grand Prix modes in games to come have followed this pattern. Just like Super Mario Kart, 64 controls alright. Having an analog stick to move your car instead of a directional pad gives you a greater sense of control over your vehicle. And on tracks like these, it's quite essential in order to master them. Seeing where iconic tracks like Choco Mountain, Yoshi Valley, Toad's Turnpike, Wario Stadium, and the definitive version of Rainbow Road got their start, it's such a wild experience from someone who never got the chance to play it when it was new. Tons of new items also made their way to the series with this game, including the triple shells, the fake item box, and everybody's worst nightmare. The infamous spiny shell made its grand entrance here, and it's good to know this thing was always super annoying. But more than anything else, what made Mario Kart 64 such a beloved entry was the inclusion of 4-player multiplayer. Thanks to the Nintendo 64 having 4 controller ports as opposed to 2 on every other system prior, up to 4 players can all get in on the fun together. This makes the game infinitely replayable, throwing even more chaos in game nights than what was possible in 1996. Getting a big group together and having tournaments to see who is truly the best is never not a blast. And it gets taken a step further with the improved battle mode. Throwing in more players and improving on the concept makes 64 a blast to go back to. While again there are things that haven't aged the best, in the right setting, Mario Kart 64 is some of the most fun you will have in the series. Both Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart 64 released on home consoles, but Nintendo also had an entire handheld market they had to cater to. So in 2001, when the Game Boy Advance was about to launch, Nintendo needed games to show off the power of their new handheld. So in came a new Mario Kart, the first Mario Kart on a handheld ever, Mario Kart Super Circuit. This one is a bit weird to see as the successor to the series after Mario Kart 64, but it's just because handhelds couldn't compare to the power of home consoles at the time. Certain parts of Super Circuit feel like a downgrade going from 64, but there were noticeable quality of life changes too. You have the same 8 characters from the last one, but now there is a random block in the center. What's different this time around is the fact that each character now has their own unique stats, giving you a reason to pick one character over another. To be a fast little guy, pick Toad. To be an absolute powerhouse, pick Bowser. Or, if you prefer a more rounded experience, you can't go wrong with Old Reliable. There are 20 brand new tracks across 5 cups in the game, taking full use of the GBA's power. For running on a handheld in the early 2000s, the fact there are slight 3D elements in the game is really cool. The game moves at a quick pace, giving players that kind of bite-sized handheld fun no matter how much time you have. But if you were someone to go full completionist with the game, you had tons to do. In addition to the 20 new courses, you can also unlock all 20 courses from Super Mario Kart. This one game, the first one on a handheld, had the most tracks out of any game in the series until 2014 with Mario Kart 8. That is impressive given what Nintendo had to work with at the time. There are certain elements that definitely don't age well going back, however. Just like the previous games, the handling and drifting during races aren't the greatest. It still constantly feels slippery, like I'm always trying to overcorrect my turns. There's also no new items this time around either, just the same ones from 64. Overall, Mario Kart Super Circuit feels like a combination of Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart 64. Taking the entire track list and graphic style from Super with all the quality of life improvements from 64 in tandem with its own enhancements and being on a handheld gives this game its own kind of identity. While there's certain elements that don't necessarily age well looking back, and this is probably the one I can't see myself going back and playing much nowadays, there's still a lot to enjoy out of Super Circuit if you give it a chance. Now, despite Super Circuit existing, home console players were still looking forward to their next big game. Luckily, they wouldn't have to wait too much longer as the Nintendo Lunchbox was revving up for the next mainline Mario Kart game. Mario Kart Double Dash released in November 2003 for the Nintendo GameCube, and people go absolutely insane for this one. And after playing a bit of it, I understand why. So this one takes things in a zany new direction and puts 2 people to a kart instead of 1. You have a tag team duo as your drivers, one of which is responsible for driving around while the other throws out items. What an unbelievably unique concept that they did once and then never again. Getting to use this tag team mechanic is such a fun time, providing a truly unique experience not seen in the series before or after this entry. This mechanic also allows for character-specific items to come into play, which makes things all the better. Some of the items are ones that used to be available to all, however. Playing as either Koopa Troopa or Koopa Paratroopa gives you the ability to get the triple shells, but no other character can get those items. It feels a bit odd having an item so intrinsically connected with the series be locked behind a specific group of characters, almost like the game doesn't trust me with them. The only exception to this is with King Boo and PD Piranha, who are able to get any special item at random. I have never seen a ghost and a flower this powerful in my life. The tag team style works remarkably here, allowing for 2 items to be held at once, which hadn't been done in the series yet. And the new tracks included here made the whole system all the more fun. Daisy Cruiser is the most iconic track in the game, and rightfully so. Baby Park, my beloved, made its debut here. Yoshi Circuit is a track based on the Yoshi design, and it's such a unique concept. Now I know what it's like to drive on Yoshi. As an added bonus to all of this, the game controls far better than any other game before it. Drifting finally feels like it's aiding your skills as opposed to hurting your chances to get on the podium. And timing out when to get a big boost at the start is super satisfying to figure out, even if it is incredibly picky about when you can use it. While it's not one I hear people talk about too much today, I really want to see Double Dash make its return in some form, whether it becomes a mode in a future entry or even a remaster of this game for current gen consoles. More people need to experience what chaos this gimmick truly entails. Mario Kart Double Dash was a blast for the multiplayer crowd on GameCube, but for someone who may not have gelled with the 2-character mechanic, a new entry coming to Nintendo's next handheld, the DS, seemed right up their alley. Mario Kart DS released in November 2005 and has been hailed as one of the best handheld games in the series. But why is that? Is it a nostalgia thing, or is there something really there? Entering the game, there's already way more there than in comparison to games that came before it. Because of the increase in hardware capabilities the DS had to offer in comparison to the GBA, characters actually look somewhat 3D this time around. Yeah, the models are incredibly jagged, but the fact a game like this is running on a handheld is quite impressive. You get your standard character roster with a few neat little additions, including the first ever non-Mario character to make its way to the series. Rob the Robot, which was bundled in with NES systems in the 80s to make people think it was a toy instead of a video game system, is playable here. Why is he here? I don't know, but it's so wacky and fun and I love it. In addition to new characters, there were also different kart options given for each character. This was sort of done in Double Dash as well, but it was more so a way for different duos to use their designated vehicle. This is completely unique, making every character even more different than before. Do you want Luigi to drive with his normal kart or with a poltergust? That's up to you. You can also give your car a little emblem to put in front of it that you can draw yourself. It's a nice little way to customize your vehicle even more, although most people use it to draw some not so pleasing things. I personally decided to use it as a shopping list, and others would be able to see it thanks to the inclusion of online play for the first time ever in the series. Getting this feature on a handheld is an incredible decision, as multiplayer fun is the main reason to play Mario Kart. Having an option to play the game online is sublime. It doesn't work nowadays, however, but it's great to know once upon a time it was a thing. The track list continues to be absolutely iconic. Tick-Tock Clock, Delfino Square, Waluigi Pinball, Airship Fortress, Luigi's Mansion, all of these great tracks that deserve to be played by all. But if multiplayer wasn't your thing, you did have more to get from this game. Mission mode is a brand new thing that was done once and never again. You had a variety of challenges to overcome, each of which different and more complex than the last. It does a great job of making the series appeal to everyone regardless of if you prefer single player or multiplayer. Looking back, Mario Kart DS is one of the better games in the series. I wish things like the mission mode would make its return to a game in the future, and seeing that this is the one that started the online trend for the series is astounding to see. If I could only see my shopping list when I'm in a race. After Mario Kart DS, fans looked to the Wii to provide some more great home console racing experiences. What they got instead was a nightmare. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's dive into Mario Kart Wii. Guess which system this was released for? That's right, the Virtual Boy! In the mid-2000s, Nintendo was hitting the casual gamer market like crazy, as the Wii became a craze people had to get their hands on. There were stock issues for years after its release in 2006, making anyone who was even considering getting one want it that much more. All because of motion controls, the main premise of the Wii's existence. Having a system where you are an intricate part of playing the game as opposed to pressing some buttons made the barrier of entry so easy anyone can get in on the fun. So when developing games for the system, motion controls were kept in mind for all of the biggest titles, and that remained true for Mario Kart. This one made full use of the Wii's motion control mechanics to make the players really feel like they're driving, and to make it all the more immersive, Nintendo created a plastic circular shell to put your Wii remote into. This little chunk of plastic is probably the coolest thing Nintendo's ever made, and I dare you to change my mind. Now this could just be because this is where a 10-year-old Joe first discovered this series' existence, but this one stands out as super unique in comparison to others. The motion controls really immerse you into the game, even if it serves to justify a gimmick and nothing else. There are other ways to play the game. You can use the Wii Remote nunchuck, you can use the Wii Classic controllers, or even a GameCube controller if your system had the right ports, but using the Wii Remote on its side with the Wii Wheel always felt the best for me. And it was made all the better with the introduction of tricks. Being able to perform a jump off a ramp and look ever so stylish while doing so, even giving you a boost after a successful one, give these ramps a much better reason for existing. These get taken a step further thanks to the introduction of bikes as usable vehicles in tandem with karts. These bikes handle drastically differently from karts, but serve as a way for players to get some variety in their playstyle. Just like the karts, there are different bike designs for each character you select, which makes things all the more exhilarating. Now, we can't talk about Mario Kart Wii without talking about the absolute joys of item balancing. Nothing screams "this is whack" more than someone getting a star or bullet bill 10 seconds into a race. Looking at this game in a more objective sense, the item frequency should make this game completely unplayable and super frustrating. Getting hit with a blue shell 2 or 3 times per race never bodes someone with confidence. But because of all the utter chaos, I find it one I constantly want to go back to just to feel something. It makes it super fun to play in a group where we could all collectively groan at what kind of torture the game has in store for us. The track selection also helps make this one way easy to go back to. Coconut Mall is one of the most iconic tracks ever. Mushroom Gorge is always a great one to go back to. Maple Treeway is always so visually pleasing. Moo Moo Meadow has cows. Call it nostalgia, but to me, Mario Kart Wii is one I look back at fondly. Sure, just like every other game, it has its issues, but at the end of the day, I always have a good time playing this game, and tons of others did too. Mario Kart Wii was the most popular entry in the series, selling over 35 million units on Nintendo's best-selling system at the time. So when their next handheld, the Nintendo 3DS, came along, putting a Mario Kart game on the system was no longer something they wanted to do, it was something they needed to do. Rather than naming the next entry after the system it's for, this one is simply titled Mario Kart 7. They can count now? I think this was done to avoid confusion, as having a game called Mario Kart DS and then another one called Mario Kart 3DS could lead people to think it's the same game again but on the next system. Which, luckily for us, is not the case. For the first time in series history, the gameplay allows for drivers to traverse through the sky via a glider that can appear on your kart or bike, in addition to taking the race underwater. Going in the water used to be a big no-no in previous games, but now it's an integral part of a good amount of these tracks. This makes for some incredibly unique ideas for tracks, as you have 3 ways to traverse it. But that's not where the changes end. As quickly as it was introduced, the pre-built karts and bikes have gone away in favor of complete vehicle customization. You can adjust the body, wheels, and even the glider in whatever kind of combinations you want. You can have a monster truck with tiny wheels, a normal kart with huge wheels, a bike with big wheels, even just a normal looking thing. It makes things feel personal, like, this is my own kart. I made this. And because of that, it also doesn't incline me to want to change it up once I find something I like. Unlocking new parts are supposed to be incentivizing me to try these new parts out as I get them, but I find myself sticking with the same old parts I know work out for me. They all have different stats, and depending on what character you use, they can either work out really well or be the most disgusting combination I've ever seen. The new tracks this time around are pretty neat as well. Music Park, Neo Bowser City, and DK Jungle are some standout hits. We got 2 new tracks based on the island from Wii Sports Resort, Woohoo Island, and these are so cool! I'd love nothing more than for these tracks to make their return in a game in the future. In addition, the retro tracks bring a lot of the most iconic tracks back, some from Wii like Coconut Mall and Mushroom Gorge. What's really weird about Mario Kart 7 is that this is an amazing entry. The game feels solid to control, the new mechanics work like a charm, the visuals are great for a 3DS game. So why do I not care as much to play this one as opposed to all the other games that came before or after it? I think it has something to do with the fact there's not much of anything here that stands out and separates this entry from the rest of the series. Back in 2011, this was absolutely the best one to play, but now that future titles have come along incorporating the key features of 7, it now just feels like more of a stepping stone than a game that warrants going back to. Oh, right, silly me. I forgot to mention the first person mode. Now I know what it feels like to be a bee driving a car. 10 out of 10 game. So after Mario Kart 7, many fans were left wondering, what's coming next? You gotta be kidding me. Mario Kart 8, technically the most recent mainline release. This was hailed as the game that would save the Wii U, or at least justify its existence for the 12 people who bought the system prior to this game's release. It really should have been a lot bigger than it was, being the first Mario Kart game in HD and taking the world by storm later on in the timeline. So why did the first release not get its time to shine? Well, it was stranded on the Wii U, better known as the Nintendo Cemetery. Not a lot of people were that interested in the next system, thinking it was just an addition to the Wii. So the newest games in the series went from selling like hotcakes to forgetting they existed. But that shouldn't deter from the game's quality, so what makes Mario Kart 8 unique? Look no further than this game's big inclusion, anti-gravity. Using this new feature, tracks in the game can be bent, warped, and built in any way imaginable to give you a completely unique feeling with every track you race on. Would you believe me if I told you I've been doing it this whole time? Yeah, it's not all that visually distinct from normal racing, and that's solely because of the fixed camera angle. But because of that, I never feel like I'm driving in an area where anti-gravity is actually being used. I can tell because the wheels move around a little bit, but aside from that, I'd be none the wiser. It really does help the track variety though, as these are some of the best in the series. I always love going through a ride in Electrodome, Sweet Sweet Canyon, Toad Harbor, Cloud Top Cruise, Animal Crossing. What? Yes, we now have crossover characters that make their racing debut. Never forget, Rob did it first. These were given to us through the DLC packs for the game and included Link from The Legend of Zelda and Villager and Isabelle from Animal Crossing. The retro tracks included in this one got a major facelift, being completely reworked to fit the mechanics of modern Mario Kart, which is amazing to see with iconic tracks like this. The kart customization as well as air and water travel make its return from 7, which flows really well combined with the anti-gravity. Of course, being a Wii U game meant it had the ability to be integrated with a gamepad, so what kind of functionality did it have? And people wonder why the Wii U failed. To its credit, there are other uses for it as well, including a mini-map or even a reflected view of what's on the TV. But let's be honest, everyone wanted to use it for the horn. But it's kind of a shame since Mario Kart 8 is the best controlling game in the series. All the movement feels so fluid and responsive, giving the game true competitive merit. And of course, you can't have Mario Kart without battle mode, so how did they improve things this time around? They didn't! This mode was definitely an afterthought looking at how things were handled this time around. There are no original maps, it's all tracks from the base game. As fun as Moo Moo Meadows is, I don't want to have a balloon battle near some cows. When you die, you come back as a ghost and still have the ability to hurt others. Why? To say the battle mode in 8 absolutely destroys a lot of the replayability of this one might be a bit harsh, but after playing through all of those tracks so often, there's not much else to do. Luckily in 2017, around the launch of the Nintendo Switch, a port of Mario Kart 8 was released that ended up fixing a lot of the issues I and many others had with the game. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is Mario Kart 8 on Switch with all the DLC included and a slew of quality of life improvements. You now have the ability to hold a second item in reserve, taking a lot of the risk out of deciding when is best to use your singular item. New characters are available, including King Boo and the Inklings from Splatoon, a very cool introduction to the series. The battle mode is actually competent, giving players actual arenas to play on instead of the normal tracks. And might I say, getting actual tracks for battle mode on this one feels so nice. It finally makes the game feel complete, like the best Mario Kart to date. Oh wait! A whole 5 years after the game came out, Nintendo released the Booster Course Pass, a collection of remastered tracks from every previous Mario Kart game. This pass essentially doubled the total track count, going from 48 to 96. Some looked better than others, but the standout ones made all the waiting worthwhile. Getting to see hits like Coconut Mall, Waluigi Pinball, Daisy Cruiser, Maple Treeway, and like 5 different Rainbow Roads all return, all of which in HD for the first time ever, is absolutely incredible. New characters were also made available as part of the Booster Course Pass. Fan favorites Petey Piranha, Birdo, and Funky Kong made their return to the series. Pauline and Peachette made their console debuts. Even Kamek, who was originally supposed to be a playable character in Mario Kart 64, finally made his debut in the series. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe started as a simple port with a few enhancements, but has grown into so much more. The years of development in the series all come together here, from the online community that started in DS, the inclusion of bikes and tracks from Wii, taking to the air and sea in 7, and basically everything from 8. After looking back on all these games, I think it's safe to say 8 Deluxe is the ultimate Mario Kart game. This feels like it holds its own weight in comparison to the Wii U game. You can play both of these games and get different experiences. They share the same name, the same art style, the same mechanics, but 8 and 8 Deluxe have become 2 separate games after continued support. Especially considering 8 Deluxe sold crazy well, being the best-selling Nintendo Switch game of all time. For an enhanced port of an 11-year-old game, that's pretty cool. Now, console players have had 8 and 8 Deluxe to go through since 2014. But if we want to get technical, there's one more new game we should talk about. A new take on the series formula made from the ground up for a new device. Mario Kart Tour, released in September 2019, was a mobile phone version of Mario Kart. It makes complete and total sense for this to happen. Nintendo was very adamant about not putting their games on mobile devices due to mobile being an active threat to dedicated handhelds like the 3DS. But as we made our way through the Switch era, Nintendo was more willing to start developing for mobile. Alongside a new 2D Mario, Animal Crossing, and Fire Emblem games, a phone version of Mario Kart was developed. Now, why is this one important enough to talk about here when I completely didn't mention other side things like the arcade machines Mario Kart Arcade GP? Well, Tour is available for people to download and play at a whim. Never seen anything like that for Arcade GP. It's not super accessible in any legitimate way without going out of my way to find a working cabinet or... oh boy. But Tour, you can just download on your phone and get into the action, no big deal. Good for you! Now when it comes to putting all of this onto a slab as big as this, it can be a bit tricky. But thanks to the touchscreen of mobile phones, you can control your cart with just a tap. Swipe from side to side to turn your car, tap to use your items, hold the drift button to drift, it's all there without the use of a controller. What makes Tour so unique is the amount of new tracks implemented in the game. From Athens to London and New York, there's so many new tracks, all reminiscent of real-life locations. This gives the game a legitimate reason for people to play it outside of its Mario Kart on your phone. While it can often be forgotten amongst the rest of the series, I think Mario Kart Tour has some merit behind it and can be a fun time if you're in need of a new mobile obsession. And if we want to get really technical, there was one other Mario Kart game that released on Nintendo Switch. Mario Kart Live Home Circuit released for Switch in October of 2020. It sure did. This is one of the more forgettable Nintendo games to come out in recent years, and that's because this really isn't a game. This isn't a mainline entry, more so the product of a Nintendo employee looking at a toy car and a camera and getting a funny little idea. By connecting a remote-controlled car to your Switch, you can place down checkpoints and create your very own Mario Kart track based off your home. This is a pretty neat concept. Seeing your living area from the perspective of a rat is just funny. And giving you the ability to create your own track out of your home unlocks a new level of creativity that you wouldn't have known about. If there's anything that's kinda lame about this, it's the fact the connection quality isn't the best when your Switch is docked. It makes sense. If the car goes far away from the system, it takes longer to respond, but you'd think there would be something implemented to keep that from happening. When you play in handheld mode and follow the car with your Switch, there isn't much of a problem. You'll just get weird looks from anyone you live with. And if someone else wants to join in on the fun, that's gonna cost extra. Yes, in order to play multiplayer, you need 2 Switches and 2 Mario Kart Live Home Circuit packs. There's bots already programmed into the game so you're not driving on your own anyway. Why is there this barrier? Regardless, this is a neat little novelty that is fun to play with for a few days at the most, but after the first time doing it, there's not too much to warrant going back to. And finally, at long last, here we are in 2025. mere days away from the release of Mario Kart World on the next generation of Nintendo systems. At the time of writing this, the game is not out, so I sadly have not played it, but by the looks of things, this seems to be a big step for the series. I, for one, am pretty excited about it, as console players have been working from the same game for over a decade now. It's time for something truly new, and I think World will be just that, giving the game a more open scope, allowing for free roam across the entire world, and interconnecting every track together in both free roam and Grand Prix is such an exciting concept that hasn't been done by the series before. Doubling the amount of racers is also a really neat way to shake things up, and giving the game an elimination mode has the potential to take things to an even more competitive level. The character roster looks huge, the new tracks are so vast and can lead to some great exploration. All of this to usher in the Nintendo Switch 2. And despite all the controversy and tough business decisions that have been made in recent months, I'm quite looking forward to seeing what this new entry has to offer. And that has been a look back at the entire Mario Kart series ahead of the release of Mario Kart World. Looking back at it now, it's so easy to see why this series is so loved by Nintendo fans everywhere. These are solid games, regardless of if you're playing them by yourself or with friends. There are times where friendships are truly strained when things don't go your way, whether they be because of an unlucky interaction with an item or just a lack of experience. It never feels incredibly unfair, no matter which game you play nowadays. And when taking your skills to the competitive side, the thrill of it all when you barely cross the finish line before everyone else is absolutely exhilarating. I get why so many love these games, and why Mario Kart is one of the best-selling Nintendo series to date. Sure, some of them didn't age too well, but that doesn't mean they're bad games. They were a product of their time, just like humanity. Maybe I've always been a fan of the series, and it only took until now to truly realize it. Either way, I'm glad I took the time to play all of these. But of course, we want to know, what's your favorite Mario Kart game, and are you excited for Mario Kart World? Head on over to the comments section and let us know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date on all things Oops All Games and Fox, Illinois.